It's my real privilege to have the opportunity to do Ed on the Edge today with Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State University, a longtime friend and partner of ours. Michael, welcome to the program.
Happy to be here. Look forward to it.
I know it's a busy time of year. Besides graduation on Monday, which I think you have 21,000 people graduating, which is,
Right.
is,
Yeah.
is kind of mind-boggling. I know a lot of other things going on, but talk about first of all. I mean, just it's pretty incredible to think about 21,000 students graduating. What's sort of the makeup? I know about a third of that is graduate students, the rest undergrad. But what does that makeup of the student base look like? And how does that differ from when you first got to Arizona State?
In the year, we'll graduate almost 40,000 total. This is just the spring graduation. So we're up about 5x in terms of numbers of graduates that we're producing. We're up 8x in terms of the number of engineering and engineering technology graduates that we're producing. For instance, we're up probably, I don't know, 8x in terms of 9x in terms of STEM majors that we're graduating, just as examples. We have more humanities majors graduating than ever before. I mean, so we're contrarian to the logic. So, and our student body is heavily from Arizona, all 50 states and 155 countries. So we've got talent from everywhere all coming here. And our American student body is representative of all the family incomes, all the family backgrounds. So we have a student body that's really capturing the talent from everywhere in the state and everywhere in the country. And so what's happened for us and where we're different is that we just built a university built on the old model of the public research university. You set the qualification for what it actually takes to be successful at the university, and then you admit every student that applies that meets that qualification, and then you innovate then to address all of the complexity of all those students.
You came into ASU July 2002, and from almost the beginning, you had this kind of vision of the new American university. One, talk about what the key principles of that are. And also, I mean, when you come in, you're trying to do something as bold and new as what you did. The people typically don't react well to change. What were some of the hurdles you had to overcome, and what were you able to do to have everybody ultimately kind of embrace that?
Well, we took a three leveled approach. So first, we decided to become something other than just the latest generic research university, public university, 800 or so in the country. The last thing we need are universities that are the same. Universities all doing the same thing, all competing in the same arena, all attempting to produce the same kinds of graduates. What we really need is unique institutions. So we built a unique charter, and our charter said that we would measure ourselves based on who we include versus who we exclude, and then most importantly, how they succeed. So we're not going to measure our success by how many people applied and then how many we didn't admit. Second, that we're going to focus our research agenda on what are we doing to actually help the United States to be successful, the public value of the research that we do as our outcome. And then lastly, that our university would actually take responsibility for things. Like if the schools aren't working very well, that's our fault. If healthcare's, in the ditch, well, we're partly responsible for that. If we're not competitive in a manufacturing sense, we're responsible for that. If we are underperforming in this or that, then we're also partly responsible for that. So we called that our charter. And then we decided that the way to drive difference was to build ourselves around what we called a set of design aspirations. We initially had 8 of those, then we added one additional one in 23 years. One is intellectual fusion. We think that the world is also enhanced by fusing disciplines together to create new ways of thinking about problems. So we did away with 85 departments, schools, and colleges. We built 40 new academic enterprises: the School for Earth and Space Exploration, the School for Human Evolution and Social Change, the School for the Future of the Oceans, a school where we linked philosophy, religious studies, and history. All these kinds of things, making new stuff happen. And then other design aspirations, including entrepreneurship and design aspirations about principled innovation, all guiding the university's behavior. Again, the last thing that we need is just more of the generic identity of universities. And then the last thing that we did was we set audacious goals, unbelievable goals, graduating 90% of our students, driving the institution forward to create whole new interdisciplinary subjects and fields and outcomes, building all kinds of new things. And then, so between this charter, that which we aspired to be, available for everybody, the specific design aspirations, be intellectually fused together, be entrepreneurial, and then this notion of specific goals, then that then led to us having to embrace, and where we come together with you, Mike, is on all things related to innovation. We had to then create an innovative culture inside the university where new innovations were accepted and new innovations were being built and new innovations were being adopted and adapted So resistance, yeah, there's resistance to all things. There's nothing. I mean, there's resistance to going to a restaurant that the other person in the car doesn't want to go to. I mean, it's just the normal way of things. And so the way that we worked our way through resistance is through what I called enrollment. So enrollment in what? Enrollment in our objectives, enrollment in our purpose, enrollment in our charter. And if you wanted to be at another generic university, you should go there because this is what this university is going to do. We're going to focus on a student body coming from every family background. We're going to focus on unbelievably intense research. We're going to innovate, innovate, innovate. We're going to build new schools, build new disciplines, make new things happen. And so what we need on our faculty are designers, innovators, creators, people aspirationally focused on our core social mission, on the success of the university and the success of the country. And so we used innovation as our principal method, driven by objectives.
Well, clearly, and I think maybe the people that are watching this, know this fact about Arizona State, but for the last 10 years, being the #1 innovation university in the United States, pretty incredible. When you're innovating, though, you are, creating a lot of change, and you can create an innovation mindset, and everything you do doesn't work. What are some of the lessons you've learned from things that you were excited about to try to innovate with, but
Well, so several things. So you can't innovate from a bureaucratic model very effectively. So you have to blow that up. So we had to move away from a bureaucratic model, what's called a conserver bureaucracy, where people are worried about resources and resource scarcity. You also can't innovate from a scarcity model. So most universities are afraid of resource depletion. So you have to operate from the assumption that we're going to innovate, we're going to acquire new resources, and we're going to allow things to fail. So the other thing we had to do was find failure as an acceptable outcome. And that all of those are very difficult inside a conservative university structure. So the lessons that I've learned is to design and build quickly, fail quickly, adjust quickly, and then when you find things that don't fail quickly, stick with them. Stay with them through the ups and downs and the thick and the thin as they're moving along, because the idea is a good idea, or else it would have died off along the way. An idea that can't attract any resources, can't attract any talent, can't attract any new ideas, well, that's not a very good idea. And so it's this sort of the main lesson is adjust your clock speed to more quick decision making, adjust your logic away from bureaucratic management to design management, adjust your innovative model away from wait for the next printing press 500 years from now to design, innovate all the time, fail quickly, accept failures, move forward. So the lesson is, making all of that happen requires you to realize that at the end of the day, it's all about outcomes. If it's not producing better outcomes, better graduation rates, better quality graduates, better research, better technologies that we're spinning out, better ways of enhancing learning, then don't do it. And so we probably haven't moved away as rapidly as we should have from some of those things that haven't been as successful.
Well, clearly what you just articulated sounds, it's a Silicon Valley philosophy, right? In which, that's kind of been the way it's been in between San Francisco and San Jose for a long time, but that you haven't seen any university really have that, embrace that, but clearly that's what's...
because they have a pre-existing culture. They have the technical phrase is a filio-pietistic view of the world. So they adore tradition. And so when the coin of the realm is, how many people did you not admit? And the larger that percentage is that you didn't admit, the better your institution is. Well, that's not really true. It doesn't mean the institution's bad. And so what we have is an adoration of tradition and an adoration of scarcity and an adoration of selectivity. Now, what we need to recognize honors colleges like Harvard and Columbia and places like that, Stanford. But then we also need to recognize, unbelievable other models of institutions to go forward, because the country needs as many models as possible, as many pathways as possible. And it's just that the traditional models are the most immune to innovation.
Right. Well, I couldn't agree more. And along with just sort of a different way to think of things, but a mental map or framework, I've heard you talk about kind of the 5 realms of education, and I kind of think of it like a Maslow's hierarchy. You start kind of at the food, water, air piece, but you move ultimately up to self-actualization, or realm 5. Talk about that real quick, then kind of where you think you're at in that process and why that's so important.
Well, since we got the video, just imagine that in my cupped hand here is all the knowledge that human beings have ever developed that's at the leading state of the art of every theory. We call that the core of knowledge. Universities exist to add to that core of knowledge, change that core of knowledge. They exist to live off that core of knowledge. They store that knowledge in the faculty and the libraries that they have. Universities perform an unbelievable function. And then for the last 1,000 years, the European American model of universities have then brought a few people to the university called students, and they sit with the faculty around that core of knowledge, and then they are educated. We call that realm one, full immersion on campus, what we call full immersion on campus technology enhanced learning. Technology enhanced because we built robots and tools and AI assets and virtual reality assets that help people to learn on campus. And then we decided if we could do that and we could use technologies in that way, maybe we could then take the university and its faculty and extend it out to the second realm, which is what we call digital immersion, technology enhanced online learning. And this is for students qualified to attend the university who earn their way into the university. So we have about 85,000 students in realm one, and we have about 110,000 admitted qualified students pursuing degrees in realm two. And that's proven to be unbelievable for us with 100,000 graduates. The market value of our degrees are, that students take online is very high as our on-campus degrees, as high as the degrees at, other major public universities. Then we created what we call realm three, which is also digital immersion, but it's open source, large scale. This is where we have unbelievable digital assets available to any learner, anywhere, anytime, any scale, for which no admission requirements are necessary. And I'll just pick one example of a program in there. You can take any one of 50 courses in our Universal Learner curriculum, in which you can then earn your way into college, earn your way into some sort of job activity, train yourself for some sort of job activity. And it's no additional skin off our nose in the sense that, we're already doing all this stuff, working on all this stuff. We're now just making these things available to more people to advance their lives. And then what we call realm four is education through exploration. So this is our recognition that the best way that humans learn is by having a life experience around the learning. You learn a lot more working on a sailboat than studying a sailboat. You work a lot. You learn a lot more about animal husbandry by husbanding animals as opposed to just reading about it in a book. But let's say you can't read about it because you can't shrink yourself down to a messenger ribonucleic acid size, and you're studying DNA, but there's no way to physically be there. So in this realm four, we built, and you're familiar with this, our Dreamscape Learn company, we built a technology with a company that has virtual reality learning, which has improved learning outcomes for less prepared students by 40% and has an average of a 2 grade level enhancement in the student's outcome in complicated subjects. So we call that realm four. And we've had tens of thousands, now hundreds of thousands of people learning in this realm. And then realm five is basically what everyone imagines AI will ultimately be able to do. So imagine this is still all connected to the university, all linked to the faculty, but now designed in a way where through small language models, through large language models, through centurion guardians around our AI tools, we'll be able to create unbelievable individual tutors, unbelievable projections of our faculty, all AI enhanced, all highly personalized and interactive. And so those are the 5 realms. We now have active projects, active allies, active partnerships, active pursuit in all of these. We have 4,000 faculty now trained in enhanced AI teaching. We have thousands of courses that are being built with AI agentic assets going along with it. And all that will result in is more learning, more personalized learning, better learning, more learning capable of being remembered, more personalized success, double majors, triple majors, ways to come back, ways to enhance your learning, all of that.
I'm going to talk more about agentic AI in a little bit, but just focus on some kind of current issues. So, under your leadership, I believe research budget to the universities increased 4x. Maybe I'm not current.
Since 2002, it's 10x.
10x, yeah.
So we went from basically $100 million a year of research expenditures. So we were a middleweight to $1 billion a year of research expenditures without a medical school, which makes us only one of 4 universities in history, MIT, Georgia Tech, University of California at Berkeley, and now us, that have been at that $1 billion of research expenditures without a medical school.
So clearly, the Trump administration and what's going on in Washington has kind of turned things upside down as it relates to the research community. I know you spent a lot of time with Secretary McMahon. One, what do people not understand about the importance of academic research, and where do you see the current state of play and what needs to get done?
So there's sort of 2 worlds in the history of the United States from a scientific perspective. So there's the 1939 world and the post 1939 world. So from 1789 to 1939, call that the first 150 years of the Republic. And so in that, there was very little academic research of any scale outside of agriculture. The country was technologically making advance, but largely through technology being driven not from fundamental research. And then after 1939, the country entered into World War II. A thing called the Office for Scientific Research and Development was organized in 1940 and 1941. It just as a number of the things that it did, it produced atomic weapons, penicillin, proximity fuses, radar, cryptography, massive Mark I computings. I mean, and so what people realized in World War II was that there were these jokers over at the university at these universities that could do things that were very hard to do or no one else could do. And so after the war, the government decided we'd like to keep this relationship with the universities going. So they built what's referred to as a social contract, which is now at question, but nonetheless a social contract for the last 75 or 80 years, in which massive investments were made in universities to do fundamental discovery. I did this video the other day at a meeting in Houston where I held up my iPhone. Here it is right here. Held up my iPhone and I said, well, little did you know that this is not just the genius of Steve Jobs and the Apple Corporation, but there's 40,000 academic papers of substance integrated into the technologies that are a part of this, over 1,000 academic patents. Behind those 40,000 papers were probably another 100,000 academic papers through the years on little things like, neodymium iron boron metal processing for electric current passage to create an actuarial tool. I mean, a tool that can be advanced, that can move. And so what I'm saying is that new materials, new systems, new math, and so forth. So what people don't understand, I call this the invisible hand. It's the invisible hand behind this. None of that goes on, and this doesn't exist. The fundamental discoveries are essential to everything that's, there's 8 or 10 or 12 sub-technologies in an iPhone. Those sub-technologies each have a lineage, a knowledge lineage. Every single one of those knowledge lineages has a recorded history, but it's so many thousands of articles. And, can you imagine there's probably, I think we estimated there's several thousand math articles just about math tools, math mechanisms that are used in the computational assets of an. Let's just take the transistor. So in 1946, there were no things called transistors. In 1947, there was a transistor that was built at Bell Labs. The Bell Labs researchers were all PhDs from universities, all connected to those universities, all linked to the academic work going on in those universities. So this phone that I have right here is an iPhone 16. It has like more than 12 billion transistors on the chip. Well, how is that even conceivable? Well, it's conceivable because of advances in material sciences. Ultimately, we figured out how to take sand and melt it, create impurities in the sand, make it then a controllable device for the flow of electrons, count those electrons moving at almost the speed of light in a binary code that would allow us to then build computational models. I mean, where does all that come from? So that stuff doesn't come from thin air, and it doesn't come from Greek philosophers. It doesn't come from just somebody dreaming stuff up. It comes from tens of thousands of academic research groups working over decades to make those things happen. And then I could give you the story for ARPANET that then became the internet. I could give you the story for the mRNA vaccines that were so useful in the pandemic. I could walk through all the tools and assets and technologies that are in, let's say, a Tesla. Just pick a random vehicle, a Tesla. and so it's just not well known, all the things that have been contributed. Now, here's one thing I do know, and this is worth noting. So I've spent a lot of time visiting universities around the world. I've been on the ground to more than 50 universities in China, and I've been able to observe since 1990 their effort to build 100 new world-class research universities from scratch at the fastest rate that they can conceivably do it. Well, why are they doing that? They actually see the core of the competition of the United States, not selling dolls to the United States, or not selling curios to the United States, or selling plastic to the United States for dishes or plastic dishes. They see that ultimately that their economy will be the most successful when they dominate science and technology in its basic form. Well, we've dominated that for the last 80 years, and we're going to have to continue to do more to dominate it for the next 80 years. And we're at the moment in time we need to figure out how to do that. We need to figure out how to best do that.
So something else that is impacting universities is just what's going on in sports and what a student athlete is. and so forth. I don't know that how many people know this about you, but you were a Division I athlete,
Yes,
and I
javelin
was a
thrower.
javelin thrower. So, one, what's your kind of view of the importance of sports as it relates to life skills, grit, leadership? How do you see the future of the student athlete evolving, and what's ASU's kind of position of what you're trying to create?
So a couple things. So there's, 5 to 600,000 NCAA athletes. That's a large number of people. Most of our Olympic sports are derivative of that body of people. So for the United States competing globally, athletically in the true Greek philosopher spirit of mind, body, spirit, we're the greatest Olympic performing country ever. And our colleges and universities are the place where most of those athletes either train or get started. And so it's a tremendously important part of our culture. Second, the culture of the United States is built on competition. The arguments that we have with China is because we don't have fair competition. Well, sports is about fair competition, and so it's about competition. So when I go to European universities, they always say to me, "What's this thing about football and basketball and baseball? And why are you playing all these sports?" And I say, "Well, because in the United States, for instance, we don't have our grants given to us by the National Science Foundation based on a formula. You have to win it. In other countries, you get formula-based funding from the government. You don't have to win anything. And so in the United States, everything at the end of the day is about competitiveness, fair competitiveness, merit-based progress, merit-based outcome. Well, there's very few things more clear than who wins the football game. That's one of the clearest things that you can possibly imagine. When we lost in the football championship series last year in overtime to the University of Texas, on our way to the national championship, that was a tough loss, but that was a hard fought competitive game. So it turns out that not only do the athletes benefit by unbelievably advanced training in a sport and grit and stick-to-itiveness and so forth, but they have 200 million people watching them. The people in the U.S. that watch college sports, 200 million people, 200 million people watching them, being inspired by them, being driven to support their teams. I mean, we have more than 10 million people watch single football games that we play in. And so that's not because they're disinterested. That's because they're excited. They want to see this competitive sport occur. So where we are is it's a very difficult moment for college sports because of so many things that are going on with NIL funding, name, image, and likeness, with other court rulings and so forth. But competitiveness of our sports, we have 25 or so varsity sports at ASU, and we want to win in all of them. We're doing very well this season in women's golf and men's golf. We won the NCAA swimming tournament last year. We were in the football championship last year. We're hoping to get into the baseball and softball World Series this year. We've got tremendous progress in volleyball and other sports. In triathlon, we've won the national competition, not yet an NCAA competition, but the national competition in triathlon, women's triathlon, several times in a row. And so these are ways in which we inspire our students, inspire our community, link to the community, but mostly we keep alive the spirit of unrelenting competitiveness in the United States.
Just quick, so did ASU get any type of Flutie effect with the success you guys had in football last fall in terms of increased applicants, or?
Well, we haven't seen that yet. I mean, we have approaching 100,000 applicants anyway, and so the answer is that people wanting to come to this university want to come to a fully competitive national scale. In a sense, we're one of the national universities. All the national universities have highly competitive sports. In fact, of the 8 finalists in the football championship series, 6 of them were AAU research universities, the highest level of recognition, including us, the highest level of recognition of a research university in the country. And so 6 of the 8 schools were also the most elite performing research universities in the United States. Well, that's not by accident. And so what I'm saying is that people pay very close attention to what we're doing. We have millions of, we're called the Sun Devils. We have millions of fans for the Sun Devils. Believe me, millions.
So let's move on to AI. So you've always been a big believer, early adopter of technology to accelerate learning, to enhance learning, empower students. And now we've got this incredible technology, generative AI. ASU was the first university to partner with OpenAI, what is now called ChatGPT EDU. What sort of the goals that you see with that partnership and today? And I know you've got a number of initiatives in terms of competitions, and I know you talk about competition, but things that you're trying to do to really get people to innovate and to embrace this. What are
Yeah.
some of the key?
So first, if you have an AI system, when you're done listening to this video, go to your AI system and ask it the following question. Can you tell me what the resistance was to writing by the Greek philosophers Socrates and Plato? And then can you tell me why they resisted writing? They didn't want writing as a technology to be a method of teaching. They wanted everyone to understand everything verbally. They wanted it all in their heads. They thought that writing was a diminishment of the intellectual capability of humans. And then after that, there was massive resistance to the printing press. I mean, campaigns against the printing press, campaigns against the technology of the book. And then you say, then compare that to the arguments against the use of artificial intelligence. And what you'll find is that they're all the same. They are attempts by some individuals who are highly capable at learning from not providing every tool imaginable to help other people to learn in the way that they need to learn. And so it's kind of a hierarchy or a structure or a sociology of learning under the assumption that only a few people are meant to know everything there is to know, or know anything that they want to know. And so the approach that we've taken is the approach of what we call abundance, the theory of abundant learning. And in abundant learning, we are looking for every tool, every device, every system, every mechanism by which we can take any learner within our institution or connected to our institution. And we have 25 million people visiting our websites a year, 25 million unique people. And so what we're trying to say to all the people that are studying with us and all the people that are working with us, we want to give you whatever tools you need to enhance your learning. So we're working with companies where we have 55 large language model partners. We're working on a joint development venture with FYI.ai, which was developed by Will I.M. And he's this polymathic genius artist who has this means to make things happen. And what we're doing there is we're taking that small language model, FYI.ai, and we're linking it into our learning activities in which you will have an enhanced way to enhance your particular way of learning with an abundant learning oriented persona, with a persona that you interact with in a verbal way that enhances your learning. So I'll give you an example. So we have an advanced virtual reality learning system called Dreamscape Learn. You can find yourself in a virtual reality 3D environment with your friends, and you're looking at, you're flying by like in the movie from 1967, Fantastic Voyage. You're shrunk down to the size of a messenger ribonucleic acid. So you've got messenger ribonucleic acid particles that are floating by you. So I asked the FYI.ai system, I said, why is it spherical? Why does it have spikes? If you remember the coronavirus from the pandemic, why does it have little flowers on the end of the spike? Like, what is all that? So I'm just asking like the questions, just like I'm asking you, like, why does it have flowers? Where did they evolve from? What are they? And then it comes back and it tells me while I'm looking at it, well, it's not really spherical. That's how it's presented to you so that you can have a conceptualization of it. It really is a series of chained particles with a number of spikes coming off the particles. And it evolved this way as a way of survival in the organism, in the biological organisms as they evolve. And so it's just layer after layer after layer after layer. And then the next guy using the same AI system says, how do I kill it? And so then it talks about how would you kill a virus? What are your mechanisms to kill a virus? And so I tested it again last night. So I was listening to this book called Abundance by Ezra Klein and this other guy.
Yeah.
In there, they're reminding me of the penicillin case, in which there was a virus that was set on a ledge of a window at an academic research lab, and a fungus got blown into the virus and killed it all off. And then ultimately, out of that fungus, scientists developed penicillin. And you start asking this system, like, well, how does that work? What's going on? And you might not be interested in the chemistry. You might be interested in what's the fungus? Where did it come from? How did it evolve? And then it takes you off in something that's really curiously interesting to you. And so what we're seeing is, and what we see as the greatest potential in human history, is that AI will break down, if used correctly and used in a disciplined way. And that's what we're trying to do. If used where you don't have any hallucinations, you don't have any of this stuff being made up. And so in a structured way, in a learning environment, it may be the greatest thing that's ever, since, what was the phrase, since sliced bread. Apparently bread existed before you could slice it. And so it may be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Well, a couple other features, if I understand it correctly, in terms of what you're able to do with FYI.ai, is it also incorporates these other aspects of the living experience, empathy, love.
Well, those things are built in the small language model.
Right.
You can't build that into a large language model, but in a small language model, you can say, well, the tonality of the structure of the way in which the information is gathered and reported back is built on the model of abundance. It's built on the model of understanding. It's built on the model of empathetic engagement, empathetic speech. understanding speech, ways to induce more questions, ways to induce more learning. You can build all of that into your algorithms. And so that's what we're looking to do. And then, you may be a kid that grew up in Samoa, and you come from a Samoan culture, and you can have a persona then that's communicating you in a culturally contextualized way that maybe will enhance your ability to understand the subject, as opposed to, well, this is the only way we understand it. It's like the paper chase at Harvard Law School. This is the way you learn. This is the only way you learn it this way or go away. And so that's at least from the movie.
Yeah. I've got one last question. We go to lightning round, but just you brought up Dreamscape a couple of times, which is this immersive learning experience that's had incredible results. Full disclosure, and GSV is an investor in Dreamscape. But the power of this, when you combine it with what you described as the complementary piece of AI, it's just imagine what this is going to be. 5 years from now, it's going to be absolutely incredible.
Oh, we're deeply committed to Dreamscape's success, because we've had 45,000 students take their labs for 3 biology classes, in which I can now tell you something, and this is no exaggeration. I'm not making this up. You give me a literate middle school student, and I can get them up to college level understanding of complex subjects related to genetics, using this system in a way where no textbook by itself and no lab by itself could do that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely mind blowing. So, you're obviously familiar with the Innovator's Dilemma and Clayton Christensen. And
By the way, when Clayton was here before he passed away, Clayton came here and he said, "Well, I don't understand you guys at all. Here you are." I said, "No, Clayton, we innovate from what you consider to be the dead core of the planet." so he always talks about innovations on the edge and moving things forward through transformation on the edge. And I said, well, in the sector that we're in, the sector's not going to give up and the sector's not going to go away. There may be tools that drive innovation, as you know, from the ed tech and learning tech business, but you can innovate from the core if you can make the institution agile and adaptive. And he said, after being here for a couple of days, he said, "Yes, you can. I'd never seen it before. I don't know how you did it."
Well, it's no small trick, that is for sure. But going to where I'm going with this, I mean, you're a disruptor, but now you become this incredibly, nearly 200,000 students, all this incredible stuff going on, and now you got this very disruptive force, agentic AI. I mean, and how much do you think about disrupting yourself, or how does this ultimately evolve, and kind of what are the key things and look at your kind of core mission, you go back to the New American University and look at a Realm 5 reality. What does this look like for ASU, and what does this mean for civil?
Yeah, so remember now, in Realm 5, which is this agentic world, personalized learning, we haven't separated it from the institution. So what the university provides is this deep contextual understanding of not just the subject. So, people will say to me, "Well, you seem to know a bunch of stuff." I said, "Yeah, I'm a B student in 100 subjects. And I'm a C student in, 500 subjects, as we all are. I'm an A student in 3 subjects, and I'm an A+ student in 1 subject. What does it mean?" And so the university is there to provide to the broadly scoped learner context of what it means. The question why can never be answered by an AI system. Why? Why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why democracy? It can answer the what, it can answer the how, it cannot answer the why. And why is the most important question at the end of the day. And so we're not separating the AI systems from the university. We're embedding them in the university to make the university better. So right now we have one of the 40 largest libraries in the world that we operate just as a part of the university. Well, when our library is AI enhanced and all of our 20,000 plus courses are AI enhanced, well, the library and all of our courses and all of our work of our faculty members will be much more powerful with our students than it ever was before. Now you don't have to necessarily find the book. You can ask the book your question. And so what I mean by that is that it goes back to, you got to look at this Plato thing on writing, and you got to look at the enemies of the printing press and the enemies of the book. They made this same argument. They thought everybody was going to be weak. What they wanted was they wanted to control the notion of who could know by controlling how they could know. Now there's no control on how you know, so therefore there's no control on who knows. And then so what we see then is just this massive empowerment. And so we're not looking to have you don't need to go to college. You just ask your AI system. You don't have to go to high school because you just have your AI system in your basement. Now, that won't work out. I'm just telling you. There has to be context. There has to be rationality. There has to be There has to be creativity. There has to be teamwork. All these things have to be integrated into this process of learning.
I think we're entering the most exciting period of human history ever, being really unleashed by what AI can do to provide those type of opportunities for all, right? Sort of
Yeah,
you talk
totally.
about this world of abundance. You talk about how the modern university can play this incredible accelerating function with that and integration function. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I want to go to a lightning round. So
Okay.
one to three sentence reaction, bunch of subjects. Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I know you're a science fiction person. What's your favorite science fiction book you've read ever
Well,
or recently?
well, recently it's The Expanse, the 11-volume Expanse, the story called The Expanse, and then there's a miniseries with 65 episodes. And so it shows the world 350 years in the future, all aspects, social, cultural, transformation, everything. It's an unbelievable, and they only have technologically doable things in it. It's fantastic.
Who is your most influential role model?
The people that I really look at heavily, two people that lived at about the same time, Teddy Roosevelt and John Dewey. John Dewey because of his theory about abundant learning and the way that we learn and the way that we think, and Teddy Roosevelt because he basically said you just get in the fight and you do your best to win, but if you're not in the fight, why are you even existing?
100%. So where's your favorite place to hike? You're a hiker.
My wife and I have a house in Sedona, and we hike everything that exists in Sedona everywhere, all the time. I love those hikes. And then this summer, I'm going with all my children and my grandchildren to Alaska, and we're going to go hiking together.
What do you think of Cam Scattaboo?
Cam is the epitome of grit and determination and innovativeness and just the sheer raw competitiveness. I mean, he's unbelievably competitive human being.
Favorite podcast?
I like the history of the English people, which had about 350 or 400 half-hour podcasts. I listened to all of them, and you realize that it's an unbelievably complicated culture, and we ought to spend a lot more time understanding history before we criticize the present.
What's the most exciting country or geography in the world right now?
I think the emergence of India as a free and clear democracy of 1.4 billion people, notwithstanding what's going on today with Pakistan and so forth, but you've got a 1.4 billion person democracy trying to find its road forward, and that's a powerful thing.
Besides ASU, what academic institution do you admire the most?
I think there's a number of institutions that are out there that have been doing fantastic things. MIT has just stuck to its guns for decades and decades and decades and just been this unbelievable source for new ideas and making new things happen. So I hold them in high admiration. The high schools that are still working, still producing graduates, graduating 95% of their kids from families of every background. That's really hard today. I hold them in high admiration also.
Who's your favorite musician?
It could be somewhere between Leonard Cohen. He's very powerful for me. I listen to a lot of his stuff. I like some of the newer guys that are out there, but he's very good for me.
So you've been the chairman of InQtel for many years. What's the most exciting technology that's come out of there from that investment?
It's not, there's been 800 or 900 technologies that we've invested in. I mean, the most exciting thing is the capturing of the technologies so early after their creation, and then the moving of them into national security and national defense so early. So the most exciting thing for me from that work is if we figured out how to move more quickly, many more technologies could find pathways to success with many more organizations rather than necessarily waiting for the slower processes of venture capital. You're going right into use, right into application, right into solutions by guiding technologies into particular niches as early as possible.
So what's the most influential course that you've either taken or been involved with?
So the most influential course I took was an all-year course studying ecosystem complexity, where you had a 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter cube taken out of a virgin prairie that had never been plowed before, and you had to study for a year everything from that 1 meter by 1 meter cube and everything within 1 kilometer of that cube, and you had to understand all of the complexities of the interrelationships of everything from the soil to the grass to the insects to the animals to the atmosphere. It was unbelievable learning experience.
So I think you said earlier there's 55 LLMs that you use, which I didn't even know there was 55 LLMs. Well, which is the one you use the most, or if you think is the most interesting?
Well, I'm using FYI.ai all the time, and I'm using ChatGPT Turbo all the time. I'm using some of the others also, and then we're also building our own. So we're building bots. So I took President Trump's 2025 report that got put together just before the election, and I got it right over there, and I loaded it into a bot, and then took all the references to it. So now, if I want to know where the new administration is going, I just ask my bot,
Yeah.
and my bot says, "Well, here's what they're going to do about this, and here's what they're interested in this, and here's the goals that they're focused on that."
Yeah, it's so cool. Last question. What are you most excited about?
What I'm really most excited about is that we have broken down the mechanisms by which the constraints of individuals we're just freeing individuals everywhere to pursue new trajectories. And if we can get that to occur at the same time as technology replaces some jobs, we could see an unbelievable economic, social, and cultural renaissance in the United States. And so I'm hopeful that we can get our clock speeds together. So I'm excited about getting clock speeds more aligned with one another.
It's an incredible way to end it. Couldn't agree more. Michael Kroll, thank you so much for spending the time with us on Ed on the Edge. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Nice to see you.